Welcome to Deal Talk. I'm Jeffrey Veit. As usual, we're going to talk about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you can save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome, all the things you have to do to get yourself prepared for that. We'll start off with EV Corner. Has some interesting facts for the electric vehicle corner this week. I was looking at a list of hybrids, many of them from good brands like Honda, Toyota, BMW, yada, 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 other makes. Hybrids aren't fully electric. You probably already know this, but just to review quickly, they have an electric motor that helps the gas engine so it doesn't work as hard and you get better gas mileage. Under normal use, about 20% better gas mileage. So it's not peanuts. It's definitely some gas mileage difference. An electric motor will drive you a few miles on its own, at 25 miles an hour if you ran out of gas. So it could run on the electric vehicle if it had to. I don't know about you, but when's the last time you ran out of gas? I don't know why they do that, but I guess it's there just in case, a little extra coverage. The real point is that they usually can achieve 40 miles per gallon in optimum conditions, about on the average. And a gas version of the same vehicle is usually about 32. It's about 20% difference. Yes, that's 8 miles per gallon more you get with the hybrid vehicle. That means that the hybrid would use about 600 gallons of gas less than the full gas version in 100,000 miles. That's a savings of $2,100 in the first 100,000 miles that you'd save by having the hybrid version. The other big fact is that the hybrid averages about 22% higher in price. That's $8,000 to $10,000 more. To save $2,100, you're going to spend $8,000 to $10,000 more. Maybe even more than that. At least $6,000 would be of any of them on the market would be the lowest. But still, I'm talking about in 100,000 miles. And for most people, that's over 6 years of driving. On the average, it's 12,000 miles a year. That's like 8 years of driving. You're going to save $2,100, but you would have paid out a big chunk more. And on the hybrid, you have two power sources to service. That price difference has less accessories on the hybrid, too. There's less room in the hybrid because of the battery takes up space and stuff. It's harder to stop from the weight difference. Let's face it, hybrid isn't a serious attempt to lower CO2 either. It's kind of a fake story anyway, right? But certainly, if you're caught up in I have to have an electric, you go with a hybrid because it's at least a little bit smarter. Two presidential candidates are telling the same story. And they're from two different parties, Democrats and Republicans. Ramaswamy and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. both say, one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. They claim the push for electric vehicles is a hoax, like I've been saying all along. They serve no actual purpose, those vehicles. It's about world dominance and world control and, the new world order, which should be called the new Nazi order. I don't know. It's really, those people they're not right upstairs. I don't know what to tell you. And never mind who's the Republican or Democrat. Never mind. Put that aside. There are some bad people that are doing things around the world that just aren't good for any of us. And climate change has got nothing to do with electric vehicles. It's not about CO2. CO2 has been way more than it is now many times on the planet. We're trying to make a decision about the heating of the planet based on a small percentage of the time it's been here. Very small, like a zillionth of a percent. I mean, it's really tiny, tiny, tiny comparison of numbers. It's just not a fact. Do we go through climate change? Sure we do. The planet has always gone through climate change. You're not going to change it, though, with electric vehicles. That's the point. The thing you should do for climate change and what we'd be spending our money on is preparation, preparing for it. What can we do to get prepared for climate change? Where do we move the farms that have to be moved because the plants don't grow the same? What can we do about those things? What can we do about making the water less of a serious concern? You got to remember, the amount of water on the planet's the same, always the same. It's always been. So if the water raises in one area, it's going to go down somewhere else. And that's how it works. One more story for electric vehicles, though. You'll see more of this in the future. But an electric bus company called Proterra, backed by the Joe Biden White House administration with 135 transit agency contracts for over $400 million, filed bankruptcy on August 16th because it just could not make a profit because the buses cost so much to make. It's like the electric tractor trailers that need at least two 8,000-pound batteries to travel, adding a whopping 75% to the cost of the vehicle. In the city, many of the electric falls aren't as visible, but safety and cost can't hide. That's the thing, but there's just no way they're going to be able to do it based on the current technology. And you can't say, well, we'll start using them and go into electric and it'll get better as it goes. No, it's not. They've been building them since 1832. It's now 2023, and they go a little farther than they did in 1832, but not that much, not consider it's 200 years. And that's the thing. There are ways to fight climate change, but this is not the way to do it. You got to remember, Mother Nature has a plan, and we're only here based on her permission, geological permission, and we can do things to adjust to climate change if we spend the money on it. But if we spend all of our money and break the public and ruin our economy trying to think that electric vehicles will get it done for us, we're going to be sorely surprised. It's not going to make any difference. Well, that's EV Corner for this week. But due diligence is a real job on an electric vehicle. We talk about due diligence all the time. That's a real job. If you like the podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Play, wherever podcast source you use. Keep in mind the Deal Talk. There have been a couple guys that have come online, one on Spotify, trying to steal the name. Some guy that's named Martin, that's a Harvard graduate, and he's trying to steal my name and my little podcast. But he thinks he's a negotiator, but he's obviously not. He certainly doesn't understand integrity, that's for sure. But be careful that you're getting the right one. It's Deal Talk, and it's got a picture of a car. And that'll tell you that it's mine. It's a blue and red car with a microphone in the window. So, if you already done a review for me, thank you very much. Be sure you tell your friends and family about the podcast. They'll save some money and some grief, hopefully, and you'll be a hero, and that's what's important. Those of you who'd like some written material to carry with you when you're out shopping, then get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon, Kindle, or Barnes & Noble Nook. They'll give you the basics for quick reference when you're in the buying process. And guess what? It's not the Encyclopedia Britannica. No, it just gives you basic notes about what we talk about here on the podcast. But it's $3. A cup of coffee is more than $3 now. There's nothing for $3. In fact, that's funny because I stopped in a store the other day and bought gas, the mobile station. I filled my tank up and I went inside because the meter wasn't working for some reason to get my receipt. And I looked over at the ice cream because I'm not supposed to have ice cream, but I always like to look at it. And a little tiny ice cream cone was $4. I thought to myself, well, there's another reason why I'm not eating much ice cream, not just my health. But anyway, it's $3. Get it. It's worth the $3. This week we're going to talk about due diligence. I might not have explained due diligence well enough the last time we covered it. I mean, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Well, I get questions about it, and that's why I want to talk about it this week. What is due diligence? Just like the research you might do on an electric vehicle or buying a home, right, or other things that you might purchase. If you're going to buy a TV set, I know friends of mine that have looked at books and all kinds of magazines and reviews and different websites and to report to look at TV sets. Well, you ought to be doing at least that on a car, probably more. Talking about something that costs you 10 times as much as your television set, maybe more than that, more than 10 times as much, maybe 100 times more. Due diligence is key to any purchase that's a big purchase, cars, trucks, anything. It's very important. That's the preparation is like your compass and your shield and your radar, preparing you for the purchase process. It's a little work, and it's true that it is, but sometimes the dealers can make it difficult to do, too, as well. They can make it difficult. They don't want to give you prices a lot of times because they're afraid that they're too high, which they probably are. Almost always are. There's always one, when you go to buy, there's always ends up being one that wasn't as high as the rest, right? During the COVID virus, it was simple, right? More reasonable to ask for information without being in the dealership and purchase. I don't want to come in. I'm worried about COVID. Give me the information. Getting the due diligence done now should be easy, but it's not as easy as it was because you don't have the threat from COVID. To gather what you need, though, you should use the web, the phone, newspapers, legwork, and probably a bit more, like dealership visits. It is a paramount to educate yourself before you start dealing. When you go to the dealership, you not only can pick out the vehicle, which we've talked about. You don't talk about price or any of that stuff when you're looking for a vehicle. You just drive the vehicle, find out what you like and what options, and then you go back and put your eggs together, because you don't even know what you should be collecting information on until you pick one out. But at the same time, you can go through that dealership and look at their hours. And you can see what the parts is like and what service is like. And, do they have rental cars? Do they have loaner vehicles? See if their amenities are good amenities. Is it convenient to your home? Are the streets packed with construction where the dealership is? You can put all that together and figure out where's the best place to buy, maybe, depending on the culture, right? Because the culture you run into when you're looking at vehicles is going to be the same culture you run into when you're servicing your car and when you're looking for parts. Culture is through the whole dealership. So if it's a bad culture where they hammer you and work things on you, well, it's going to be that way everywhere you go in the dealership. Doesn't make any difference. Many times a listener has a question because they've not done the research. They'll have a question about things like that. Most of your work can be done from home. Most of the due diligence you can do right from your house at your convenience. In fact, over multiple days. You don't even have to do it all the same day. There are the buying sites online. There are good places to look at the product, but not good for price, right? You go to a buying site like, Ford or Chevy.com or Honda.com. That's a good place to look at the product. Or if you go to Car Maxima or Carvana, if you're looking at a used vehicle, that's a good place to look at vehicles and get a feeling on the market. But that's not the way you want to buy one. Anytime you buy a vehicle online, you're just paying more people. There's just more mouths to feed. That's all don't think for a second you're saving a nickel from it. It's actually costing you money 100% of the time. It's costing you more to do it that way. They can provide some information about the particular model and manufacturer, but don't buy a vehicle online ever. I'm telling you, it won't help you, not one lick. These sources amount to just another mouth to feed. How to buy is what you hear on this podcast. Like I said at the start of the episode, unfortunately, I've not found a really good online buying information source. I really haven't. I've checked around guys that think they know how to negotiate, like our friend there that's trying to steal my name. And that guy, he doesn't know who Pat shot at. He has no idea. I don't know. He says he went to Harvard, but I can't believe they teach in Harvard what he is using. Now, Donald Trump's book's probably pretty good. I'm not an advocate for his techniques, but you know what? He might know a lot about buying. He's done a lot of buying and a lot of selling. But there's other places you can go and you can compare it to what I'm talking about. But mine is specific to automobiles, big ticket items. That's what it's specific to. And really what I talk about is it's not about any real tricks to negotiating. Knowledge is king. The more you know about the product and the pricing and what's available and the market, that's hard to fight against for a dealer. That is what's paramount. Most sites promise the info, but it's incomplete, right? They don't give you the info. They're sponsored by advertisers. They've got advertisers. Tell them this, tell them that. We'll give you $100 a month or whatever. Many buying tip sites promise the lotto numbers, and then they give you the first two numbers, and they skip the rest of them, right? You notice I don't advertise for dealers because of that, because there's no way that I can vouch for what they're telling you is the truth. So how can I advertise for them? I can advertise for other companies like maybe insurance, or maybe I have, or for different products that are in the marketplace that I run into that are good. But other than that, I stay away from advertising. I've asked on the podcast many times, if someone finds a good buying tip site, please send it to me and I'll check it out. just see if it's complete or incomplete, or see what I agree with or what I don't. And almost every case, all the ones that I've gone on and found online, we're getting money from other sources. In fact, I even think that Consumer Report does sometimes. I think that some other people do. I can't prove that. I can just tell you based on their ad that when they're ridiculously prejudiced about a product that shouldn't be rated as high as they're rating it, I got to believe there's something else going on there. But that's only on the monthly issues, and I normally catch that and tell you if there is. The yearly issues are almost always straight as an arrow. I may not agree with all of it, but it doesn't mean that they're not putting forward their best information. There's also the problem of having to deal with the fake news, which is 100% bias, right? I mean, 95% of the news, I think it's 96% of the news, is owned by Democrats. First of all, that shouldn't be allowed in the country. That's not right. That's why you get so much fake news. They've gotten to the point where they're safe for them to not tell the truth. And the news should never be safe when they don't tell the truth. They should be under threat if they don't tell the truth purposely. What we're learning in our lesson about fake news, you got to think the same thing. They'll talk about, all the things in the marketplace that are doing well that aren't necessarily doing well. You can't pay any attention to what they tell you. Really, you can't. So anyway, with due diligence, you're starting from home. You pick a vehicle, and you're looking for good, unbiased opinions on the product, right? I suggest Consumer Report first. Not only good information about the basics of a model and its history, but it'll help you determine what models should have good resale value in the future. The yearly edition is great for dependable information. That's the one. If a model has a great repair record, track record, or more importantly, if the make has a great repair track record and the entire company, that's an indication that the resale will be good on any model that they sell. Give me an example. I can't remember the last time Toyota had a vehicle that had bad resale. You have some that are better than others because of demand, supply and demand. But I don't remember any that were bad. Same with Honda. Never. Or Mazda. Nowadays with Subaru, years ago, Subaru wasn't so great. When they had the pan motor and stuff, they weren't such a great company. Now they're really top notch. Everybody can grow, right? If most owners' reviews are positive, that can be an indication, right? Consumer Report isn't free, but if you don't want to spend a few bucks for a Consumer Report, then go to the public library because you can get it. You can read it right in the public library. It'll be a month. I think they're only a month old. So if you went in the public library tomorrow, this is September, you could only read, I think, August edition. Would be the soonest you could read. But you don't need that. It doesn't matter. It could be a year old. For what the information you're looking for. I guarantee Consumer Report is a huge benefit. When it comes to product reputation, quality, and general facts on the brand, they're great. Buying and trading, not so much. They are just, they're not experienced at it. They haven't had as much experience at it. You can't get that information from from the people that buy the magazine. They're not going to be able to give them the information on what's best in that case. So they give their own what they think is the case. And so far, they have not been right? Gathering the wholesale and retail values because you need both numbers. You can use different sites, but things would be, first of all, Edmunds.com, wholesale and retail, you can get both. Kelley Blue Book, which is wholesale and retail for both. The Black Book, which as far as pricing is used normally for wholesale prices. They're auction travelers. They do the auction. Those guys are at the auctions. That book is very accurate when it comes to wholesale. NADA, which is the best one all around, I think, for both wholesale and retail, especially for the retail there. I think that if someone said to me, which books did you look at first? NADA. But you can go to any of those sites, and you can go to NADA.com and do price on any vehicle there is, put in all the information, and they'll give you a price. And you got to remember, that's just one opinion. Those are the main pricing sites. I use NADA and Black Book, but that's the main ones. I found that Kelley Blue Book is more about making the seller and the buyer happy. If you're selling, they've got the price high, and if you're buying, they got the price low. And how they do that is by talking about wholesale versus retail from the buyer's point of view. But I suggest you use all of the sites, but at least two with the wholesale and the retail. Wholesale is your trade, but you'll need to deduct any reconditioning and add or deduct for things like low or high mileage. Retail is for what you would pay. But again, adds and deducts are factors, big factors, as a matter of fact. So often listeners ask, why bother shopping your trade with used vehicle dealers? If you have looked at the books, I have had that question a dozen times. I'll bet you I've talked about it before on the podcast. People are saying, well, what do we have to go through all this to price out the vehicle? Well, I'll tell you. It's because the market's different in different parts of the country. That's number one. And nothing's going to be more accurate than what the used car dealer will pay for the vehicle. I'm telling you right now. There's nothing more accurate than that. So you've got to have, you've got geographic considerations and you've got market considerations, and they just have their own areas. But when you go to the used car dealers in those areas where you live and you ask them for information, it's going to be the real skinny, because they're going to be talking about paying. You know what I'm saying? To guard against being too high or too low, you should always shop 3 or 4 used vehicle dealers to get an opinion on the value of your trade and the value of any used vehicle you might be buying. So if you're buying it, you can't take that around, but you can call and say, hey, look, I've got this 2021 Honda Civic, 4-door. I've got about 25,000 miles on it. It's an XL. Would you folks be interested in buying it? And it hasn't had any paint work. Well, you would? Okay. Well, what kind of money? Before I drive all the way down there, will you just give me an idea where you'd be? And they'll give you an idea. Yep, they'll give you an idea. And then you can go to another used car dealer. Now, if you're selling your vehicle, you're trading your vehicle in, take the vehicle right in there and say, look, I want to sell my vehicle. Give me a number. What will you pay me for it? And give me a week to work things out. And they'll give you a number. And those guys don't bluff. They'll buy it for whatever they tell you. Any normal size used vehicle dealer will be aware of the current auction. Let's say you're looking at a used Honda at the Ford store, and you're looking at a new Ford, either one, and you've got a Chevy to trade. You can go around to 2 other dealers. You can go to the Mazda dealer and the Honda dealer, and they'll give you a price on buying it. They got a used car lot. Any dealer that has a used car lot will buy your trade. Obviously, if your trade's a Honda, nobody's going to pay more for your used vehicle probably than a Honda or a used car dealer. A straight used car dealer doesn't have new cars, depends on new used vehicles, so they might pay a little extra for a really clean used vehicle. If you can't get out to do that, if you're one of those people that says, no, I got to get my dealing done today and it happened this morning, well, then at least call them. At least call people and get an idea. And you add those numbers to the book numbers. Now you're looking at, an average. You're trying to come up with some average. So let's say the books have told you it's worth $10,000. Anywhere from 95 to 10.5. And dealers are telling you that they'll pay 10.5, 10.8, and 11,000. Well, that means that you're closer to the high side of the book, 10.5. That would be a good market value, wholesale now. Not necessarily what they'll allow you on a trade. Got to remember that if they've got if they'd give you $1,000 off if you're trading, they just add the $1,000. Instead of giving you $1,000 off, they just add it to your trade value. But once you've negotiated the price on the vehicle you're buying down, and there's nothing left there, you've made a deal on that. That's why I tell you to deal separately. Then bring up your trade. They're going to be offering you wholesale. And when you got that information, that due diligence done, that's a tremendous amount of strength when you go in, because you can say, hey, wait a second. First of all, you know the market. You know what your vehicle could be worth, the high and the low, and you want to get the high. And you can say to the dealer, hey, look, there's 2 used car dealers that'll pay me this for it. Can't you run it through your books? I'll trade it in with you, and you can run it through your books and sell it to them. Won't cost you anything to do that. And they might say, okay, we'll most dealers would say, yes, we'll do that. But a lot of times what they'll do is they say, okay, we'll just give you the money that we're going to give you. And that's what they'll do. Who cares which way they do it, as long as you get what you wanted, right? Books and shopping are truly the best for getting an informed value on your trade-in. No question about it. Then you're going to go for the vehicle you're looking at. You're going to go, if it's a used vehicle, you're going to go for a Carfax or an auto check. That's important as well. Checking for flood evidence is something you must do yourself. No ifs, ands, it's important. Check for flood. I don't care what they tell you. You get under to look yourself. It's worth the time you spend doing it. It's not that big a deal, and it's worth the time. And you can look at the Carfax. And another good thing is to ask, if it's a used car dealer, is to ask them for the repair order where they got the vehicle ready. See what they did to it to get it ready for the lot. I mean, like I've said before, if you're looking at a car with 20,000 miles on it, and they said they had to put brakes on it, or all the brakes on it, or they put all new tires on it, something's wrong with that picture. Now, if it was a certified pre-owned, you wouldn't worry so much. But if it's not a CPO vehicle, why'd they change the tires? Is it the fact the speedometers may be off? That's what I'm looking for. You're looking for signs of things that are wrong. What's wrong with this picture, right? So after you've done that, then you're going to go online and get a copy of your credit score. You're going to get the number. What is your credit score? What's your beacon, they call it, right? There's a million sources. You can get it for free. It doesn't cost you anything. My favorite is Experian.com. I think they'll charge you $1 for it, I believe. But, I like Experian because that's the company that establishes the credit scores. That's one of them. Who would be more accurate than they are, right? They seem to be a pretty good outfit. At some point with your insurance, to be sure your rates won't change if you buy the unit you're considering, especially if it's a motorcycle. You want to make sure before you buy that dude what the insurance is going to be. There's no question about it, because you can really get shocked. You can get shocked with vehicles, cars. I know a person that had a regular sedan and bought a Jeep with a soft top and stuff, and his insurance went way up. Well, because it's dangerous. It's like a convertible, And I told you stories about motorcycles before, where guys will buy a motorcycle, they buy a really hopped up Suzuki, and it ends up their insurance is like $5,000 a year, like $500 a month, because that's the type of motorcycle it is. And they're like freaked out. They didn't check before they bought. And guess what? Once you own it, they don't have to buy it back. Nope. They don't even have to call the insurance company. If you got a plate, they can just transfer your plate. That automatically transfers your insurance. At some point, check with your insurance company about your rates on the vehicle you're considering before you purchase. It's really important. It might be nothing. You might check and say, there's nothing I have to worry about. No big difference. Okay. But it's those ones where it is that you'd really be sorry, right? Better be safe than sorry. Finance information in a general way is available on the net. Most banks post their rates and term limitations. But to get hard figures, you're going to need to call or go into the bank. Hopefully 4 banks. You're going to find out what the rates are at what you're looking at. What's the term, how much down payments they require. And you're just going to get the information. You're not going to get a loan. You're just going to get the information. Because when you go to the dealer, you're going to find out what their story is. You get to the dealer, you make a deal finally, and they tell you, okay, the rate's going to be 9.9%. And you tell them, hey, look, my bank will do 7.9%. Guess what? It's going to be like miraculous. Like walking on water. All of a sudden they're going to say, well, we'll see. We'll call and get that for you. Because they get, as long as they don't cost you any money, who cares if they make a little, right? As long as they're not more than the banks. Another finance source, if you want to figure payments, is autofinancing101.org. But in my opinion, you should get a payment calculator off the net, out of the App Store, or one of those places for your smartphone or your tablet. In most cases, they're free to download and use that to figure your payments. Lease-O-Matic is a good one. They'll do leases or purchases. You can do it either way, which is probably better, right? These programs figure payments or leases at variables. You can put all the variables in there, and you don't have to take the dealer's word, because we talked about packing payments, right? That's not really part of the due diligence story. We've talked about a lot, but that's how you can avoid it right up front. Let's not forget dealers' websites. You contact and ask for out-the-door price quotes. If you're asking for quotes on a new vehicle, be sure to have the MSRP off the Monroney label before you email the dealer, because that's really how they determine apples to apples, oranges to oranges, right? You want a price on the correct vehicle. This is important for comparison's sake. And you want an out-the-door price. You don't want any tricks. You don't want to know, this plus fees, or no, we didn't tell you about the dealer fee. Where's the dealer fee, right? Many times the dealer asks you to come in. They want you to come in so they can try to push and sell you and stuff. If you don't get the information, don't get aggressive. Don't get mad. Just be assertive. Call the owner of the dealership. Hey, look, I was trying to get a price from your people. I can't get in there. I got to talk to my parent. I got to talk to my wife. I don't have time right now. I'm trying to figure things out. I wanted to buy something from your store, and they're making it difficult. I need the price. And won't be zing. Owners don't monkey around. They will get you the number. They'd rather give you the number and lose you the customer than have you upset. Or the general manager. If you have to call the general manager, you can call him too. That should get you what you need. No question about it. You should be able to compare the dealer's services and amenities based on your visit, like we talked about, when you shopped and test drove. But if you didn't, go online and check out their page. You can look at that stuff on the page, but I like doing it in the dealership because you get a feel for how the people are. Are they in a good mood? Are the employees happy? Is everybody friendly and smiling? That's important. That's not a little thing. You don't want somebody working on your vehicle that's pissed off. You don't want people in that situation. That's just asking for trouble. And it'll tell you. Now, everybody can have a bad day, but if you see that generally through the dealership, that's normally the culture. And that's why if they're deceptive in their advertising, I've talked about it a million times, they read their ad in the paper and there's a whole bunch of unanswered questions in the bottom in the disclosure. That's not a good sign. Dealers that are honest don't do that. But online, you'll find out on their website the hours of operation, their service policies, rental, if it's available, will be on there. You do need either rental or loaner availability or someplace across the street maybe, but you got to have that because if your car breaks, you need to get home. And so you want to be in a place where you can get that stuff done, where you can find something. As you can see, there are tons of sites to help you with your deal before you go into the dealer to purchase. If you want the information, you can go through the work. It's just a little time consuming. That's all. It's not hard work. But once you know exactly within a few dollars of what your trade is worth, you know exactly what 4 other dealers are selling the same vehicle for, right? You know what the bank's rates are. You know what your credit score allows for you. You know what your trade-in market is. You've been to the dealership and you know whether they're decent to deal with, whether they've got a convenient service hours, if they've got loaners and rentals. All that information kind of puts you in the driver's seat. You know plenty. They can't pull the wool over your eyes. They could for a couple $100, but that'd be about it. They couldn't get much past that. And normally, if you know this stuff, they can tell. They know, and they will be a lot more, what would you call it, open to discussion because of the fact they can tell that you really know. And this information is important to have before you go in and talk price. You don't want to go in, pick out a vehicle, and then talk price, and then go out, and then come back. Nope, because they're not going to have to defend what they told you before. So what you do is you go pick out a vehicle, you come back home, you do all the due diligence, then you go into the dealership, and you start fresh, and that's when you buy from that particular time. Or not. But don't buy one online. Don't do that. Nope. You'll pay significantly more for the purchase than you would if you were to gather information and go in and deal in person. Face-to-face is still the best way to deal. I don't care. Anybody tells you that's the best way to deal. That's the best way to negotiate on anything. You'll notice when we negotiate with China or with Russia or some other country, what happens? The president goes or the Secretary of State goes in person. They don't do it by email. No, you want to see what's the red in their eyes. You want to know what's going on. You want to be able to tell where they really stand. What about dealer-installed accessories? That's part of the due diligence, too. We didn't talk about it, but it's part of it. If you know before you buy, you live in the Northeast, you're going to buy rust-proofing and paint sealant because of the tough weather, and you're not putting any money down, so you need gap insurance. You're going to shop those 3 things around town before you even go into the dealership. Yep. And then when you go in and they tell you, well, yeah, you can get rust-proofing. Ours rust-proofing is $750, and you tell them, well, I got a place right here in town and sell it to me for $450. All of a sudden, you'll say, well, let me go talk to the boss. And they'll be within, they'll either match the price or they'll be within $50, you know what I mean? And so that's how you do it. You got to do it, but you don't want to tell them that, make it up. And they say, well, go there and buy it, and then you can't buy it from the dealer, and you can't buy it because you made it up. No, you want all that done. You want to have the real skinny. You want to know the facts. You want to be talking from a position of being informed. You know what's going on. Shop these things. You can shop those things by phone. You don't even have to go into a dealership or to a different place to sell rust proofing and paint sealant. You can do that right over the phone. Look in the phone book in the yellow pages, or go online for your area. And well, let's say you live in Philadelphia, Paint Sealant Philadelphia, and a bunch of dealers will come up to sell paint sealant and install it. And you can call around, see. Anytime you've got better price, dealers have good products. That's why when people go in the F&I office, I tell them, listen. A lot of people say, no, I just tell them, I don't want anything, just sell me the car. No, listen to their pitch, because they may have things you really need you don't even know about. The only thing wrong with a dealer is they charge more than anybody else. It's like going to the movies. You go to the movies, what's a bag of popcorn cost you? It's like some ridiculous number. It costs them 50 cents to make it, and they charge you $10 for it or something. That's the same idea. The F&I office has high prices, and you negotiate with them. You can't negotiate in the movies, but you can negotiate at the F&I office, I'll guarantee you. Because if you don't buy anything, they don't get paid. See? It'll vary by a lot, but you'll get them down. That's it. You do that work, and it makes a difference. In many cases, what we're talking about, the due diligence without being tough in negotiation, just that alone can save you thousands of dollars. No question about it. Just being in a position of knowing. Yep, it's like anything you'd buy, just knowing. As you can see, there are tons of sites that get you help. And when you go to the dealership, they can tell when you know, when you're not phony, when you really know the stuff. They'll listen to an informed customer, no question about it. They'll take it seriously. It's like any product. If whatever you do for a living, when somebody comes in and talks to you about it and they know about the product, you can tell listening to them whether they really know and understand and they've really looked at the product. And that changes things, doesn't it? You have to be accurate. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to be totally upfront. This knowledge building is paramount. It's everything in a deal. It really is the most important part. Like any product or concern, if you don't feel like the person knows what they're talking about, you lose respect and interest in their words. You just do. If you follow the plan, any dealer will be more upfront with you than they've ever been before. Sometimes due diligence is harder to read because of fake news media. They make claims about the automobile business without any basis of fact. Don't pay any attention to that stuff. An example would be the electric vehicle market is heating up. I hear that on the news, right? It's not heating up. It's as cold as ice right now, as a matter of fact. Like, there's places going out of business. They've come out with these fancy models, and they're talking about things. You notice a lot of manufacturers are going to hybrids. They're talking about hybrids because people aren't buying on the total electric. The hybrids are dangerous too, but the total electrics are downright, they can kill you. And they don't talk about that, but they can. They're dangerous. They're a terrible investment. They have no resale value. There's nothing good about an electric vehicle, and they mislead you about the information. I was listening to an ad the other day on Hyundai. They were talking about up to this week you can charge 80% in 20 minutes. They neglected to say in the ad that the guy was on a superpower charger, that 80%, all of them charge quicker for the 80%. It's that next 20 that takes all the time, just like your phone, right? They don't tell you about all that stuff. And the mileage was up to, because the minute you turn anything else on, the air conditioning, the lights, the wipers, and anything, it starts drawing from the electricity and cuts down to how far the vehicle will go. They don't tell you that either. But the news will tell you the market's heating up. It's a total hoax. Electrics count for 5% of vehicle sales. At best, manufacturers have invested billions in this hoax. They've invested a ton of money, and they'll tell you almost anything to sell the vehicle because they got billions of dollars invested in this. All of the 40 reasons I gave you to avoid electric vehicles in the last few months, 40 reasons I've given you. I gave you 30 on one show, and I gave you 35 on another podcast, and I gave you 10 alone, and it's a total of 40. I haven't really tried to come up with any more since then, but those 40 reasons, they all still apply. This is truly snake oil being pushed. There's no question about it, but if you get the due diligence done, you're okay. Due diligence includes getting the truth, right? You not only want to get due diligence, the facts, all those things, you want them to be true facts. So when you go in and and the dealer tells you something, you know when he's being right with you or not. Whether it's, what's the real skinny? And when you start coming out with the real skinny and tell them after a couple of deals, they make you some offers, and you finally say, hey, look, I'll give this because here's what other dealers have told me. Here's what the book says. Here's what the NADA says. Here's what 2 used car dealers offer me for my trade. Here's what I've got with the bank. They'll listen. Believe me, they will listen. They don't want to lose you as a customer. And as soon as they realize that you know what you're talking about, they'll treat you like you know what you're talking about. That's the difference. That's how important it is. Well, that's Deal Talk for this week, talking about due diligence. If you have a question or a request or even a comment, please call or email me, right? You can email me at dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com or dealtalk@mail.com. Please don't forget to tell your friends and family about the podcast. You'll be a hero, guarantee you. Everybody saves some money. It benefits everybody. I've had nobody that couldn't say it benefited in some way. You'll be helping them save money, possibly big money, and do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. It's $3. I keep telling you that. $3. How can you not buy one? You could look at it and say, I didn't need that. And I wasted $3, right? You spend $3 on all kinds of goofy stuff, right? We all do. Well, spend $3 because you're spending $4 or $5 on stuff that you'll know, is gone in 5 minutes. However I can help you, contact me and you'll learn from me. No question about it. I will help you. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. The amount, the months, the rate, any required down payment to get to those terms. Not on just the first payment quote, but every single time they quote you a payment and every cash price you get should be all in. Every single cost required to buy the vehicle. Tax, plates, dealer fee, aftermarket options, everything. They call that OTD. Out the door.